You know, driver, I've got to tell you something that's been eating at me for months now. I'm Margaret, I'm 66, and what I'm about to share with you, well, let's just say my own daughter has no idea what's coming for her. See, she accidentally sent me a voice message meant for her husband, and what I heard in that message made me pack my bags the very next morning with a plan she'll never see coming. Listen to this. I heard my daughter Grace's voice, cold as ice, saying, "Ricardo, I can't take having my mother in this house anymore." Can you imagine? Your own child talking about you like that? But wait, it gets worse. She called me a nuisance, said I get into everything. And then, get this, she tells him she's been looking into cheap nursing homes. Found one for just $800 a month. I'm sitting there listening to this, and I swear the floor felt like it was opening up beneath me. This is the same daughter I worked day and night for, cleaning other people's houses until my hands were raw. The same girl I put through college by selling my mother's jewelry, piece by piece. Remember when her fiancé Richard left her at the altar the first time? I spent my last savings convincing him to come back because she was crying her heart out in my arms. But here's where it really gets sick, driver. The message kept going, and Grace says, I kid you not, I've already checked the house papers. It's in her name, but I found a way to transfer it to our name without her realizing. My hand started shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. My own flesh and blood was planning to steal my house. The only thing of value I have in this world, the house I built brick by brick working 12-hour days for 30 years. And then she laughed. Actually laughed and said, in a month, Mom will be in the home and we'll own everything. We can finally live in peace without that bitter old woman controlling us. You want to know what betrayal feels like? That's it right there. But here's what Grace didn't know about her old mom. I'm not as naive as she thinks. After 66 years on this planet, I've learned that sometimes you've got to fight fire with fire. I couldn't sleep that night. Not 1 minute. At dawn, I got up with more determination than I'd felt in years. Put on my best crimson suit, grabbed all my important papers, and walked out with a smile on my face and a plan that would change everything forever. Let me back up and tell you how we got here. I grew up in a family where love meant sacrifice. My mother, God rest her soul, worked as a seamstress from 5 in the morning until 10 at night to keep us fed. We didn't have money, but we had values. Margaret, she'd tell me while teaching me to sew. In this life, family is everything, and for family, you give your last drop of blood. When I got pregnant with Grace at 18, her father vanished like smoke. One night he's promising marriage, next morning he's gone. His parents slammed the door in my face, said their son wasn't going to ruin his future for some random girl. That's when my mother showed me what she was made of. That child is going to have everything we couldn't, she told me, selling her only gold bracelets, the only jewelry she had, to buy baby supplies. Grace was the most beautiful baby you ever saw. Big eyes, smile that lit up the whole room like sunshine. My mother and I took turns caring for her while I worked cleaning houses at 19, making barely $20 a day. But every cent went to her. I'll never forget taking Grace to kindergarten for the first time. We walked because we couldn't afford the bus, but she wore her uniform perfectly pressed and her shoes shining. Other moms arrived in fancy cars, dressed to the nines, and there I was in my patched-up dress with these calloused hands. But when Grace kissed my cheek and said, "Thank you, Mom. You're the best in the world," I knew it was all worth it. My routine never changed. Wake up at 4, make Grace breakfast, get her to school, clean 3 different houses until 6, pick her up, help with homework, put her to bed with a story. Weekends I did laundry for extra cash, all so she could have better than I had. My mother passed when Grace was 8, but before she left, she made me promise something I'll never forget. Margaret, that child is your greatest treasure. Give her education, give her love, and she'll take care of you when you're old. Our family's blood is good. She won't fail you. When Grace turned 15, I worked extra shifts for 6 months to give her the quinceañera party she deserved. Spent $3,500 on that celebration. Money I'd been saving to fix our leaky roof. But seeing her face that night, watching her shine in that golden dress as she danced, was priceless. "Mom," she told me while hugging me, I don't know how you give me so much when you have almost nothing. When I grow up, I'm going to give all this back to you, multiplied by 1,000. High school, she was perfect. Best grades, school plays, teachers telling me she had a brilliant future. But keeping up with it all wasn't cheap. Books, uniforms, field trips. It all cost money I didn't have. I started cleaning a fourth house on Sundays, my only day off, just to pay for everything. College time came, 15,000 a year. I was making 400 a month cleaning houses. The math was impossible, but mothers do the impossible for their children. I took a loan using my house as collateral, sold the engagement ring her father gave me before he disappeared, even sold my mother's sewing machine. My daughter, I told Grace the day we enrolled her, I couldn't go to college, but you're going to be a professional. You'll have a degree. Work in an office with air conditioning, never have to clean other people's houses like your mother. All 4 years, I worked like crazy paying for everything. Grace needed money for books, projects, going out with friends, proper clothes for presentations. I gave her everything, even if it meant eating beans and tortillas for a week to save money. Graduation day was the proudest moment of my life. Seeing my daughter walk across that stage in her cap and gown, hearing them call her name. All my sacrifices felt worth it. She hugged me crying and said, "Mom, this is as much yours as mine. I never would have made it without you. I promise now that I'm a professional. You'll never have to suffer again." A year later, she met Richard at work. At first, I was thrilled seeing her so happy and in love. He seemed decent, had a stable supervisor job at the factory, treated my daughter well. When he officially asked for her hand, I cried thinking Grace would finally have the stable family I couldn't give her. The wedding was another huge financial sacrifice. Grace wanted elegance like in magazines. 8,000 for the venue, 2,000 for the dress, 800 for music, 600 for flowers, 10,000 total. Money I got from another loan and selling my last jewelry pieces. First years of marriage were beautiful. Grace and Richard visited every Sunday, had dinner together. She always helped with house expenses. "Mom, now that I'm working, I want to take care of you like you took care of me," she'd say, giving me grocery money. Finally felt like my sacrifices paid off, that I had a grateful daughter who truly loved me. But everything changed 3 years ago when Richard lost his job and they started having money problems. They began constantly asking me for loans. And me, I couldn't say no. First it was 1,000 for monthly expenses, then 2,500 for a car down payment, then 3,000 for credit card debts. Everything started changing subtly after I lent them that 3 grand. Small things I justified in my mind, thinking it was stress from their financial problems. But now, after hearing that message, I understand it wasn't stress. It was the beginning of a calculated plan to push me out of their lives. First sign was when Sunday visits stopped. "Mom, we're so busy with Richard's new job," Grace would tell me on the phone. "You know how it is, we need to show we're responsible." Then came excuses for not answering my calls. Morning calls, "Mom, I'm in an important meeting, I'll call later." Afternoon calls, "Oh Mom, I'm grocery shopping." Night calls, "Mom, it's too late, we're having dinner." That later never came. Then came the hurtful comments disguised as concern. "Mom, Richard says he's noticed you've been very forgetful lately. Are you sure you can live alone in that big house? At your age, anything could happen." I laughed nervously, but the seed of doubt was planted. One afternoon, I decided to surprise them with Richard's favorite pineapple dessert. When I knocked, I heard laughter and voices inside, but it took 5 minutes to open the door. "Oh, Mom, what a surprise," Grace said with this forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We were just organizing some work papers." Inside was her cousin Carol, the one who works at the county clerk's office, with documents scattered all over the kitchen table. When they saw me, Carol quickly gathered everything into a folder. "Hello, Aunt Margaret," she greeted with that fake smile she's always had. I was just helping Grace with Richard's health insurance paperwork. But I caught a glimpse of my name on one of those documents before Carol hid it. "Why do you need papers with my name?" I asked innocently. Grace and Carol exchanged this look I couldn't interpret then, but now I understand perfectly. It's just to update beneficiaries, Mom. You know, in case something happens to us, you're our only family. That calmed me then, but later I noticed whenever I mentioned it, Grace quickly changed the subject. Mom, why don't you tell me about the garden? Oh, Mom, did you see that new show on Channel 5? Then the deliberate forgetfulness started. They'd invite me to lunch, and when I arrived at the restaurant, they weren't there. Oh, Mom, we forgot to tell you we had to cancel. Richard had a work emergency. This happened 3 times in 2 months. Fourth time, I sat alone in that restaurant for an hour feeling like a fool while other families enjoyed their meals together. They also started excluding me from family events. Found out by chance talking to my neighbor Miss Rose that they'd had a barbecue for Richard's birthday. How strange you weren't there, Margaret. I saw them buying meat for 20 people at the supermarket. When I asked Grace, she said, "Oh, Mom, it was very informal. We didn't want to bother you." The final straw was when they decided to move into my house temporarily. Mom, they're painting our apartment and we need to stay with you about a month. Besides, this way we can spend more time together. Isn't that perfect? I was happy to have them close again, thought we'd finally regain our closeness. But from day one, things became different in my own house. Richard complained about everything: TV too old, internet too slow, shower pressure too weak. Aunt, this house needs lots of repairs. At your age, maintaining such big property must be very difficult. Grace started reorganizing my things without asking. Mom, these plates are too old. I'm replacing them with new ones. And these clothes in the closet are so out of style. We should donate them. Little by little, my house stopped feeling like mine. I was a guest in my own home. Quiet conversations started that stopped when I entered the room. I'd see them talking in the kitchen, and when I appeared they'd change to something trivial like weather or news. One night, I heard Richard on the phone on the patio. "Yeah, we're already living here." "No, she doesn't suspect anything. Carol says she can have the papers ready in 2 more weeks." When I asked who he was talking to, he said his boss about a work project. They started subtly controlling my finances. "Mom, let me help with electric and water bills. You're too old to worry about these things." At first seemed kind, but then I realized she was going through all my bank statements. "Mom, why do you need so much cash?" she'd ask when she saw I'd withdrawn $200 for personal expenses. Most painful was hearing how they talked about me when they thought I wasn't listening. One afternoon, trimming plants in the garden, I heard Richard tell someone on the phone, "My mother-in-law is getting harder to handle. She's becoming very stubborn with age." Grace laughed in the background, it's true. Lately she forgets things and gets difficult when we try to help. But what really opened my eyes was when they started making comments about my mental health in front of others. My longtime friend Miss Letitia came to visit and Grace told her, "Oh, Letitia, my mom has been so confused lately. Yesterday she wanted to go for a walk at 10 at night because she thought it was morning." Complete lie. I'd never done such a thing. But I saw how Letitia looked at me with pity. "Oh, Margaret, good thing you have Grace to take care of you." I felt deep anger but also immense sadness, realizing my own daughter was creating a false narrative about my mental state. Strange visitors started arriving. Doctors supposedly checking my blood pressure, social workers evaluating my living conditions, even a man introducing himself as a geriatric care specialist. All scheduled by Grace, never asking if I wanted these visits. During one evaluation, I heard the doctor talking with Grace in the living room. "Ma'am, your mother seems physically fine, but I'll note in the report that she shows signs of mild age-related confusion." I was listening from the kitchen, completely lucid, while this man wrote lies about my mental state. The tension became unbearable. Every day more pressure, more control, more hurtful comments disguised as care. "Mom, you shouldn't drive anymore. At your age, it's dangerous. Mom, better not go shopping alone. We can do it for you." Little by little, they took away my independence, autonomy, dignity. Most painful part was they did it with smiles, telling me it was for my own good, that they loved me and only wanted to take care of me. Then came that Tuesday afternoon when everything changed forever with a simple tech error that revealed the cruelest truth I'd experienced in my 66 years. That day had been particularly difficult. Grace and Richard left early saying they had work matters, but I knew something was wrong. Saw them whispering all morning, and when I asked what was going on, got those fake smiles I'd learned to recognize. It's nothing, Mom. Just boring stuff about Richard's job. Around 3 in the afternoon, making chamomile tea to calm my nerves, I heard the notification on my phone. Voice message from Grace. Thought she was letting me know they'd be late or asking me to prepare something special for dinner. How naive. I was thinking my daughter still considered me important enough to tell me her plans. I pressed play without imagining that in the next 3 minutes my entire life would be torn apart. Ricardo, I can't take having my mother in this house anymore. Grace's voice began with exasperation she'd never used with me in person. My heart stopped. These words spoken with such contempt were like daggers piercing my soul. She's a total nuisance, Ricardo. Gets into everything we do. Always asking questions. Always there. And on top of that, we're already spending so much money on her. I've been looking into cheap places. Found one on the outskirts for only $800 a month. With what we save, we can finally remodel the kitchen we want and get new living room furniture. Every word was a physical blow. My own daughter, the child I'd dedicated my entire life to, talking about me like old furniture to be discarded. The $800 the home would cost was exactly what I'd been giving them monthly from my pension and small savings. But the audio continued, and what came next completely destroyed me. Also, I've already checked all the house papers. It's in her name, but Carol explained how we can transfer it to our name without her realizing. About $500 in bribes and fees, but it's worth it. My cousin has experience with these arrangements. In that moment, I understood everything. Carol's casual visits with her document folders, conversations stopping when I appeared, specialists who'd come to evaluate my house and mental state. All part of a meticulously orchestrated plan to have me declared incompetent and steal my property. My house, worth approximately $485,000, representing all my assets, my future, my security. The house I'd built brick by brick, working 12 hours a day for 30 years, where I'd raised Grace, celebrated her birthdays, cried when she graduated, dreamed that one day my grandchildren would play. I already spoke with the director of St. Francis Home. Grace's voice continued with chilling coldness. Explained the situation. Told him my mother has early-stage dementia and it's dangerous for her to live alone. He was very understanding. Says they see cases like this all the time. Already signed preliminary admission papers. My legs trembled so much I had to sit on the kitchen floor. My own daughter had lied to a stranger about my mental state. Signed papers to institutionalize me without consent, doing it as easily as planning a vacation. The plan is perfect, honey. Next Tuesday, we'll tell her she has a routine medical appointment. Take her to the home, check her in, and by the time she realizes what happened, she'll already be inside and we'll have legal guardianship. Carol says with the medical reports we got saying she has mental confusion, it'll be easy to prove she can't make decisions. Those fake medical reports they'd fabricated with corrupt doctors, those evaluations I'd allowed thinking they were for my health. All a farce to build a file justifying taking away my freedom and rights. Richard could be heard laughing in the background, his tone of approval evident. The man I'd welcomed into my family, helped financially, treated like a son, actively participating in destroying my life. Best part, Grace continued with heartbreaking laughter, is she'll never suspect. She thinks we're perfect children who adore her. Still says, thank you for taking care of me, honey, when I bring her breakfast in bed. If she only knew I'm giving her that breakfast to keep her calm while I prepare her living funeral. Something inside me broke irreparably. Wasn't just betrayal or discovering my daughter hated me. Was the humiliation of realizing that while I blessed her every night in prayers, thanking God for such a good daughter, she was calculating how many days until she could get rid of me. With the $485,000 the house is worth, we can pay off all credit card debts, the car loan, and still have enough for that Europe vacation we've always wanted. Best part is we won't have to pretend to love her anymore. No more Sundays pretending we like her horrible food. No more listening to her repetitive stories from when she was young. Every word another stab. My food, prepared with so much love, every Sunday hoping they'd visit. My stories, shared to connect and teach about our family. Everything I thought was love was for them a nuisance to endure. In a month, Mom will be in the home, and we'll own everything. We can finally live in peace without that bitter old woman controlling us. Besides, the life insurance is in our name, so if something happens to her at the home, God forgive me for saying this, it wouldn't be so bad. Those last words froze my blood. They didn't just want to steal my house and freedom. They'd coldly calculated that my death would be convenient too. They'd turned their own mother into an investment, hoping to profit from both my life and death. Message ended with laughter and comments about choosing dinner that night, as if they'd planned a vacation instead of total destruction of the woman who'd love them more than anything in the world. I stayed on my kitchen floor I don't know how long, phone still in hand, replaying the message over and over, hoping I'd heard wrong, hoping it was a nightmare I'd wake from. But every replay made reality more raw, more painful, more definitive. That night I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't do anything but walk around my house looking at every object, every photograph, every memory I'd built thinking I'd lovingly pass it to my daughter. Now I knew it would all be stolen, sold, or trashed without respect for memories. But as I walked through my house in the darkness, something began changing inside me. Sadness and pain started transforming into something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pure, cold determination. My daughter thought I was a naive old woman easy to manipulate. She'd completely underestimated the woman who raised her. At dawn, I got up with mental clarity I hadn't had in months, put on my most elegant crimson suit, grabbed my purse with all important documents, and left before Grace and Richard woke. I had a plan, and they had no idea what was coming. I woke at exactly 5, like my body knew it was the most important day of my life. All night I'd been planning every move, every word, every detail. I was no longer naive Margaret, who'd allowed her own daughter to manipulate her for months. Today I'd show Grace she'd completely underestimated the woman who raised her. Put on my crimson pantsuit, same one I'd worn to her college graduation. Applied makeup carefully, styled my hair elegantly, put on the pearl earrings my mother left me. Wanted to look like the strong, dignified woman I was, not the vulnerable victim they thought I was. Before leaving, I wrote a note for the kitchen table. Left early to take care of personal matters. Back in the afternoon. Love, Mom. Didn't give details because they didn't deserve them. For months they'd made decisions about my life without consulting me. Now it was my turn to act without explanation. First stop, the bank. Arrived exactly when they opened at 8. "Good morning, Miss Baker," said Nora, the manager who'd known me 15 years. "How can we help today?" "Nora, I need to review all transactions in my account for the last 6 months, and I want to change all my beneficiaries. Also need you to explain if anyone's tried accessing information about my accounts without authorization." Nora frowned, reviewing my file on the computer. "Miss Baker, I have several inquiries about your account registered here made by your daughter, Grace. She presented a letter signed by you authorizing her to review bank statements to help with your finances." My blood boiled. "Nora, I never signed that letter. Can you show me that document?" When I saw the supposed authorization, immediately recognized the signature was forged. Similar to mine, but I'd never written my name with that slant. "This is forgery," I told her, showing my ID to compare signatures. "My daughter has been fraudulently accessing my bank information. Need you to immediately cancel any authorization she has and put security alert on my account." Nora turned pale, realizing the seriousness. "Miss Baker, this is very serious. We'll cancel all unauthorized access immediately, and I recommend filing a fraud report." "That's exactly what I'm going to do. But first, I need to protect my assets. Want to transfer all funds to a new account only I can manage and change the beneficiary of my life insurance." For the next hour, Nora helped me secure all finances. Transferred my $87.50 in savings to a completely new account, changed all passwords, and named a charitable foundation for abandoned seniors as life insurance beneficiary. Grace wasn't going to see a single cent of my money. Second stop, county clerk's office where Carol worked. Arrived without warning with small recorder hidden in my purse. Good morning, Carol, I said with sweet smile. I've come to check status of my property. My daughter told me you've been helping her with some paperwork. Carol immediately got nervous. Oh, Aunt Margaret, what are you doing here? Grace didn't tell me you were coming. Her hands trembled as she tried to quickly close documents on her desk. Don't worry, Carol. Just want to better understand this insurance paperwork my daughter's doing. Could you explain exactly what documents you need with my name? Carol started sweating. Well, Aunt, it's just routine updates for the registry. Her voice cracked, realizing I knew more than I was letting on. Carol, I said, leaning forward, I know exactly what you and my daughter have been planning. Know about the fake documents, the plan to take my house, and I know you've been helping her forge papers using your position here. I showed my phone with the audio I'd recorded. Carol slumped in her chair. Aunt Margaret, I didn't want to do it, but Grace told me you couldn't take care of yourself anymore. That it was for your own good. It was for money, Carol. Don't pretend it was for my good. Now you have two options. Either help me reverse everything you've done, or I go straight to your boss with evidence you've been forging official documents. Carol started crying. Please, Aunt, I can't lose my job. Have 3 kids to support. Between tears, she explained the entire process. How they'd forged my signature on several documents, created fake medical reports, planned to use everything to have me declared incompetent and transfer my property. All right, Carol. You're going to help me fix this. Then look for another job. But if you help now, I won't press criminal charges. Over the next 2 hours, Carol helped me invalidate all fraudulent documents. Also gave me copies of everything as evidence, including fake medical reports and property transfer documents they'd prepared. Third stop, Attorney Harrison Ford, most respected lawyer in the city. Attorney Ford, I said, showing all evidence I'd collected. I need your help to stop fraud and protect my rights. Attorney Ford reviewed all documents with professional attention. Miss Baker, this is very serious family fraud case. We have more than enough evidence to press criminal charges. But tell me, what exactly do you want to achieve? I want justice, attorney. But most of all, I want my daughter to learn actions have consequences. For 66 years, I've been too good, too generous, too understanding. Time for someone to defend me, even if I have to do it myself. The attorney smiled with admiration. Miss Baker, we're going to prepare a legal strategy that protects all your rights and sends very clear message about consequences of trying to defraud a senior citizen. For the next few hours, we prepared civil lawsuit for fraud, document falsification, and attempted illegal appropriation. Also prepared criminal complaint against Grace, Richard, and Carol. Attorney explained I had solid case and very likely would recover all damages caused. End of afternoon. I returned home feeling completely different. No longer vulnerable victim who left that morning. I was a woman who'd taken full control of her life and was ready to face consequences of years allowing others to abuse her kindness. When I arrived, Grace and Richard were in living room watching television, acting like nothing happened. Hi, Mom, Grace said with fake smile I'd learned to recognize. How did your errands go? Very well, honey, I replied calmly. Took care of exactly what I needed to. I sat in my favorite armchair and looked at them intently. By the way, some people are coming to visit tomorrow. Hope you're here to receive them. What people, Mom? Richard asked curiously. Oh, you'll see. I told them with mysterious smile. People who will help us clarify some important things about our family's future. That night we had dinner in silence. I knew exactly what would happen next day, but they had no idea of the storm coming. For the first time in months, I slept soundly with peace of mind that justice was on its way. Next day, exactly 10 in the morning, doorbell rang. I'll get it, I said, getting up quickly before Grace or Richard could move. At the door were Attorney Harrison Ford, 2 police officers, and public notary. Good morning, Miss Baker, attorney said. We've come to execute the orders we discussed yesterday. Grace and Richard got up from sofa with complete confusion. Mom, what's going on? Who are these people? Sit down. I told them with authority they'd never heard in my voice. Time for you to know the truth. Attorney Ford cleared his throat. Miss Grace and Mr. Richard, I'm here on behalf of Miss Margaret to inform you we've discovered irrefutable evidence of fraud, document falsification, and conspiracy to commit illegal appropriation against her. Grace and Richard's faces turned completely white. What are you talking about? Grace stammered. We would never do anything like that. Grace, I said, taking out my phone. Want me to play for everyone the voice message you accidentally sent me yesterday? In that moment, I saw all blood drain from my daughter's face, eyes filled with pure panic as she realized her perfect plan had been discovered because of her own negligence. The moment of truth had arrived, and there was no turning back. The silence in my living room was deafening. Grace and Richard were petrified, staring at me like they'd seen a ghost. For months they believed they had total control, that I was a helpless old woman they could manipulate at will. Now they realized they'd completely underestimated the woman who raised them. Attorney Ford, I said, keeping my voice firm and serene, please proceed with presentation of evidence. Attorney opened his briefcase, took out thick folder full of documents. Miss Grace and Mr. Richard, we have irrefutable evidence of crimes you've committed against Miss Margaret. He placed first documents on coffee table. Let's start with forgeries. Showed Grace the document she'd signed at bank authorizing herself to access my accounts. This is her authentic signature, pointing to my ID. And this is forged signature you presented at bank. Differences were obvious when seen side by side. I don't know what you're talking about, Grace stammered. But her voice trembled so much it was clear she was lying. Mom asked me to help with accounts because she was forgetting to pay bills. Grace, I said with calm that even surprised me, stop lying. There's no escape now. I took out my phone and pressed play. My own daughter's voice filled the room. Ricardo, I can't take having my mother in this house anymore. She's a total nuisance. Watched Grace's face completely fall apart listening to her own words. Richard tried maintaining composure, but his hands visibly shook. Neither realized the message had been sent to my phone by mistake. Turn that off, Grace screamed, lunging for my phone. But officer immediately stopped her. That's private. You have no right to listen to my conversations. Relax, honey, I told her with cold smile. This is just getting started. Sit down and listen to everything you planned for your mother. Audio continued playing all their cruel plans. When it reached the part about hoping I'd die soon for insurance money, the silence was devastating. Even police officers exchanged looks of disgust, hearing a daughter talk about her mother's death as financial opportunity. Attorney continued exposing every detail of their criminal plan. Showed fraudulent medical reports, forged documents, evidence of stolen money from my accounts. $8,750 they'd taken using fraudulently obtained information. You plan to take her this coming Tuesday, telling her it was a routine medical appointment, attorney revealed, showing admission documents they'd signed behind my back. It was for your own good, Mom, Grace insisted desperately. You were getting so forgetful. Sometimes you got confused. Enough with the lies. I finally exploded, losing composure I'd maintained throughout confrontation. I have never been confused. You invented those stories to justify your plan. I addressed Grace directly. You know what hurts most, honey? It's not that you wanted to steal my house. Not that you planned to institutionalize me against my will. What hurts most is that for months while I hugged you and told you how much I loved you, you were calculating how much money you'd make from my death. Grace completely broke down, crying hysterically. I'm sorry, Mom. So sorry. We were desperate for money. Had so many debts. Didn't know what to do. Desperation doesn't justify betrayal. If you needed money, you could have asked me honestly. My entire life, I've given you everything I have. But instead of trusting my love, you decided to steal from me and destroy me. Police officer approached with handcuffs. Miss Baker, do you wish to proceed with arrests? I looked at my daughter crying inconsolably and for a moment felt pang of maternal pain. But then I remembered her words in the audio, her coldness planning my destruction, her laughter talking about my death. Yes, officer. Proceed with arrests. Seeing my own daughter handcuffed in my living room was one of the most painful images in my 66 years. But also the moment I realized I'd regained my dignity and personal power after months of feeling like a helpless victim. Mom, please, Grace yelled as officer led her toward door. You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter. I'm the only thing you have in this world. Her words echoed with bitter irony. She'd been the one who decided I had no place in her world. Richard looked at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, you crazy old lady. You're going to pay for ruining our lives. Those words didn't scare me, but confirmed I'd made the right decision exposing them. After Grace and Richard were taken away, my house was left in absolute silence I hadn't experienced in months. For first time since they'd come to stay temporarily, I could walk around my own house without feeling watched, judged, or manipulated. But that peace didn't last long. Next day, campaign of terror began that showed me the lengths Grace and Richard would go to get revenge. First attack came through social media. Grace created fake profile and started posting terrible stories about me in local community groups on Facebook. My mother has senile dementia and falsely accused us of theft. She's so confused, she doesn't recognize her own family. Please, if you see her alone on street, call me because she shouldn't be unsupervised. Posts included photos of me taken without knowledge, edited to make it look like I had mental health issues. Comments from strangers were devastating. Poor woman, she looks very confused. How terrible for mother to accuse her own children. Phone calls started coming at all hours, unknown voices insulting me, threatening me, telling me I was a unnatural mother who destroyed her own family for money. You're miserable old woman, female voice screamed at 3 in the morning. Hope you die alone and abandoned. Anonymous letters full of poison and resentment started arriving. You're a failed mother. You raised daughter who hates you so much she'd rather see you dead. Think about what you did wrong. Another was even crueler. Your own children abandoned you because you're insufferable. No one will miss you when you die. Letters attacked not only my relationship with Grace, but all sacrifices I'd made in life. You worked as servant your whole life. And for what? For your daughter to despise you. You were a fool who let herself be used. One night while reading one of those particularly vicious letters, I completely broke down. Sat on my kitchen floor, same place where I'd listened to the audio that changed my life, and cried like I hadn't cried since my mother's death. What did I do wrong? I asked myself over and over. How could I have raised daughter who hates me so much? For first time since this legal battle began, I considered giving up. Maybe it would be easier to drop all charges, forgive Grace, try to rebuild our relationship. Maybe I really had overreacted. Maybe they did love me in their own way, and I'd misinterpreted their intentions. But just as I was about to call attorney Ford to drop the lawsuit, I remembered something that completely changed my perspective. Got up from floor and went to my room, where I kept all most precious memories in small chest. Searched until I found what I needed. Letter my mother had written me shortly before she died, when Grace was 8. My dearest Margaret, letter said in my sick mother's shaky handwriting. If you are reading this, it's because I'm no longer with you. But I want you to know I'm very proud of the woman and mother you are. You raised Grace with so much love and dedication, I'm sure she'll be a good woman who'll honor you for life. I continued reading with tears in my eyes. But if things ever get difficult, if someone tries to hurt you or take advantage of your good heart, remember you are stronger than you think. Don't allow anyone, not even your own daughter, to trample on your dignity. True love never seeks to destroy, never seeks to steal, never seeks to humiliate. Last lines gave me the strength I needed. Margaret, you deserve respect. You deserve genuine love. You deserve to live your final years in peace and dignity. If someone can't give you that, then they don't deserve to have you in their life, no matter how much blood you share with them. That night, for first time in weeks, I slept soundly. My mother was right. True love doesn't destroy, doesn't steal, doesn't plan death of loved one as financial opportunity. What Grace felt for me wasn't love. It was economic convenience disguised as filial affection. Next day, I woke with renewed determination. Called Attorney Ford. Attorney, I want you to proceed with all charges. I'm not dropping anything. Want this case to go all the way. I'm glad to hear that, Miss Baker, he replied, because I have important news. Grace and Richard are trying to reach out of court settlement. They want to avoid public trial at all costs. What kind of settlement? They're willing to return all money they stole, pay for damages, and commit to never contacting you again if you drop criminal charges. I thought about that proposal carefully. On one hand, I'd recover my money and get rid of their manipulations forever. On other hand, they wouldn't face full legal consequences of their actions. Attorney, I finally said, I accept the settlement, but with one additional condition. Want them to sign full confession of everything they did, publicly admitting I'm mentally competent and all their accusations about my mental health were false. And I want that confession published in same places where they defamed me. That's very intelligent, Miss Baker. That will completely clear your reputation and prevent them from continuing smear campaign. Week later, Grace and Richard signed the agreement. I recovered my $8,750 plus $15,000 more in damages. But more important than money, I recovered my peace of mind and dignity. Public confession was devastating for them, but liberating for me. We, Grace Baker and Richard Williams, admit we falsely accused Miss Margaret of having mental problems. We admit we planned to steal her property and created fraudulent documents to declare her incompetent. Miss Margaret is in perfect mental condition, and we invented those stories to justify our criminal actions. That day, exactly 1 month after hearing the audio that changed my life, I realized I'd achieved something that seemed impossible. I defeated those who tried to destroy me, and done it with intelligence, dignity, and always sticking to the law. But my story wasn't over yet. I had new life to build, and I knew exactly how I wanted to live it. With legal agreement signed and reputation completely restored, time came to make most important decisions of my new life. I was no longer naive Margaret who'd allowed her kindness to be abused for decades. I was a 66-year-old woman who'd learned true strength doesn't come from enduring abuse, but from defending yourself with intelligence and dignity. First action I took was completely changing my will. Summoned Attorney Ford to my house and dictated my new final wishes. Attorney, I want all my assets, including this house and all savings, donated to Golden Hope Foundation, which helps senior citizens abandoned by their families. Are you completely sure about this decision, Miss Baker? It's considerable estate, approximately $490,000. Completely sure. Want that money to help people who truly need it, not ungrateful children who see their parents as financial investment. I also stipulated that if Grace tried to contest the will, she'd automatically lose any right to receive even a penny. My second decision was to move. No longer wanted to live in a house where I'd been betrayed, where I'd heard my own daughter plan my destruction. Attorney, I want to sell this property and buy something smaller, more in line with my current needs. In 3 weeks, I found perfect place. Beautiful apartment in residential complex for active seniors with gardens, recreation areas, and community of people my age who valued independence and dignity. Apartment cost me $85,000, and with $95,000 left from sale plus legal compensations, I had enough money to live comfortably for the rest of my life. But my most satisfying revenge was completely legal and absolutely devastating for Grace and Richard. Turns out during my investigation with attorney, we discovered they'd lied on their tax returns for past 3 years. They'd reported much lower incomes than real ones to pay less taxes, but had been living lifestyle that didn't match those reported incomes. Miss Baker, attorney told me with a smile, I have information that might interest the IRS. He showed me evidence that Richard had been working unreported side jobs and Grace had been selling products online without declaring earnings. Attorney, as a responsible citizen, I believe it's my duty to report any tax evasion I'm aware of. After all, we all must contribute fairly to country's upkeep. Week later, IRS initiated full audit of Richard and Grace. They discovered they owed $22,000 in back taxes plus penalties and interest, bringing total debt to $35,000. Since they didn't have that money available, they had to sell their car, pawn jewelry, and take high-interest loans to avoid going to jail for tax evasion. My third revenge was professional. During investigation, we also discovered Carol wasn't only public employee involved in fraud. There was an entire network of corruption facilitating these kinds of thefts against seniors. With Attorney Ford's help, we turned over all information to appropriate authorities. Investigation resulted in dismissal of 6 public employees, including Carol, and discovery of at least 12 similar cases to mine where they'd stolen properties from seniors using fake documents. When scandal became public in local newspapers, Grace and Richard became perfect example of unnatural children who abused elderly parents. Their names and photographs appeared on front page with headlines like Family Betrayal That Shocked the City and Children Plan to Steal 66-year-old Mother's Home. But my most intelligent revenge was social. Turns out Grace worked at prestigious company where personal reputation was essential for professional growth. When her boss found out about scandal through newspapers, he called her into his office for very uncomfortable conversation. We cannot have employees involved in family fraud scandals. Our company has reputation to protect. Although he didn't fire her immediately, he demoted her to less important position and made it clear she'd have no opportunities for promotion in near future. Richard also faced consequences at his job. His supervisor, upon learning he'd participated in plan to defraud his mother-in-law, told him, "If you're capable of stealing from your own family, how do we know you won't steal from us?" He lost all opportunities to get promotion he was hoping for. But what satisfied me most was seeing how their own friends and family rejected them. Richard's sister refused to speak to him after finding out what they'd planned to do to me. "How could you participate in something so cruel against old woman who'd only treated you with love?" she screamed at him during family confrontation witnessed by several neighbors. Grace's friends also gradually abandoned her. Mothers in her social circle didn't want to associate with someone who'd so cruelly betrayed her own mother. If she's capable of doing that to a woman who gave birth to her, what won't she be capable of doing to us? They'd comment among themselves. Even at supermarket and pharmacy where they'd been known for years, people would point and whisper behind their backs. They'd become public example of what not to do to elderly parents. Throughout this entire process, I never acted with hatred or thirst for revenge. Every action I took was legal, ethical, and justified. Didn't lie about them, didn't invent false accusations, didn't threaten or hurt them physically. I simply allowed natural consequences of their own actions to run their course. 6 months after day I heard that fateful audio, I ran into Grace at the mall. She looked haggard, tired, much older than her 35 years. When she saw me, she approached with tears in her eyes. "Mom," she said in broken voice, "please forgive me. I understand you're angry, but we've already paid the price. We lost everything. Our credit is ruined. Richard lost his promotion. I had to take job with lower salary. Don't you think that's punishment enough?" I looked her directly in eyes without hatred, but without weakness. "Grace, I didn't punish you. Consequences of your actions punished you. You decided to plan my destruction. I just decided to defend myself. But we're family," she pleaded. "Blood is blood, Mom. You can't abandon your only daughter. Blood doesn't give you right to mistreat, steal from, or plan someone's death. For 35 years, I was your unconditional mother. For 3 months, you were my calculating executioner. You can't ask me to forget that just because you're now facing consequences." "So you're not going to forgive me?" she asked, crying. "I already forgave you, Grace. Forgiving you was necessary for my own peace of mind. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or allowing you to hurt me again. Forgiving doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. Forgiving doesn't mean giving you another chance to destroy my life." I left her crying in that mall and walked away toward my new apartment where my new life awaited me. Life where I was no longer anyone's victim, where I no longer had to pretend abuse was love, where I no longer had to sacrifice my dignity to maintain toxic relationships. For first time in decades, I was completely free. Year after that encounter at mall, my life had taken path I never imagined possible. At 67, I woke up that spring morning in my beautiful apartment with sun filtering through white curtains I'd chosen myself without anyone telling me they were too expensive or unnecessary. Made my coffee in small but perfect kitchen for my needs, sat on my balcony to contemplate gardens of residential complex. In distance, I could see other residents doing morning exercises, tending plants, or simply enjoying tranquility. We were all seniors who decided to live our final years with dignity and independence. "Good morning, Margaret," greeted my neighbor Nora, 72-year-old woman who'd become my best friend. "Ready for our dance class today?" I smiled, remembering how I'd started taking dance classes at 67, something I never thought I'd do. "More than ready, Nora. These old bones still have a lot to give." During this year, I discovered version of myself that had been dormant for decades. Without constant pressure to please Grace, without stress of walking on eggshells in my own house, I'd blossomed like flower finally receiving sunlight. I'd enrolled in painting classes and discovered natural talent for landscapes. My paintings now decorated walls of my apartment, and I'd sold some at local art fair. Miss Baker, fair organizer, had told me, "Your paintings convey peace and wisdom that touches people's hearts." I'd also joined volunteer group at Golden Hope Foundation, same organization that would be beneficiary of my inheritance. I worked 3 days a week helping other seniors who'd been abandoned or mistreated by their families. Margaret, Miss Carmen, 81-year-old woman who'd come to Foundation after her children evicted her from house, told me, "You understand our pain because you lived it firsthand." At Foundation, I'd become kind of unofficial counselor. People who arrived broken and hopeless found in my story an example that it was possible to recover, possible to rebuild dignified life after most profound family betrayal. Miss Margaret, Mr. Robert, 75-year-old man whose children had emptied his bank accounts, told me, "How did you manage to forgive and move on?" "Mr. Robert," I'd replied, "forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or allowing them to hurt us again. Forgiving means freeing our heart from poison of resentment so we can live in peace. But living in peace also means moving away from those who hurt us, even if they share our blood." My work at Foundation had given me purpose I never thought I'd have at this age. We'd managed to help 47 seniors recover money stolen by their families. 23 had managed to reverse fraudulent documents that declared them incompetent, and 15 had found new safe homes after being evicted by their own children. But most important thing I discovered was my own self-worth. For 66 years, I'd measure my value by how much I could give to others, how much I could sacrifice, how much pain I could endure in silence. Now, I understood my value as person didn't depend on being useful to others, but on being true to myself and respecting my own boundaries. As for Grace and Richard, I occasionally received news through mutual acquaintances. They'd had to move to smaller, more economical apartment. Richard had definitely lost opportunities for promotion and now worked at lower paying job. Grace had to accept additional part-time job to pay off all their debts. But what I was told most was that their marriage was in crisis. When they no longer had mother-in-law's house as backup plan, they started blaming each other for failure of their plan. They're constantly fighting over who was to blame for everything being discovered, Miss Rose, my old neighbor, told me. Interestingly, this didn't give me vengeful satisfaction, but deep sadness for decisions they'd made. They destroyed not only their relationship with me, but also their own relationship with each other. Greed had been poison that contaminated everything it touched. 6 months ago, I'd received a letter from Grace. Hadn't opened it immediately, took me 3 days to decide if I wanted to read what she had to say. Finally opened it in presence of Nora for emotional support. "Dear Mom," letter began, "I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but I need you to know that not a day goes by that I don't regret what I did to you. I've been going to therapy and now I understand my actions were unforgivable. I'm not writing to ask for your forgiveness or to be back in your life. Just want you to know I finally understand harm I caused you." Letter continued. "Therapists helped me understand my actions weren't born of financial desperation, but of selfish mindset I developed over years. Got so used to receiving your unconditional help that I stopped seeing you as person with rights and feelings and started seeing you as a resource I could exploit. Now I understand you deserve respect, genuine affection, and care in your golden years. Instead, I gave you manipulation, lies, and betrayal. I've lost best mother in world because of my own greed and stupidity." Letter ended with phrase that made me cry. "I don't expect your forgiveness, Mom, because I know I don't deserve it. Just hope you are happy and that you find peace you always deserved. With love and eternal regret, Grace." That letter took me weeks to process emotionally. On one hand, I was happy to know Grace finally understood magnitude of what she'd done. On other hand, it was already too late to rebuild our relationship. Some wounds, even if they can heal, leave scars too deep to allow things to go back to how they were before. I'd responded with brief but honest letter. "Grace, I accept your apology, and I'm glad to know you're seeking professional help. I forgive you because holding grudge would harm me, but forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean I can trust you again. I wish you the best in your life, but my life is now at peace without you. With affection, but without way back, your mother. On quiet nights in my new home, I often reflected on lessons this experience had taught me. Most important was that true love never seeks to destroy or appropriate loved one. True love respects, protects, and seeks well-being of other without expecting anything in return. I'd also learned that setting boundaries isn't cruelty, but emotional survival. For decades, I'd confused extreme sacrifice with maternal love, when in reality, I'd been teaching Grace she could mistreat me without consequences. Sometimes, I'd told women in Foundation Support Group, greatest inheritance we can leave our children isn't money or property, but example that all people, including their mothers, deserve respect and dignity. That spring morning, as I finished coffee on balcony, I received call from Attorney Ford. Miss Baker, I have news that might interest you. I've just been contacted because 3 other cases similar to yours have come to light. Affected families want you to share your experience on how to deal with these situations. Of course, attorney, I replied without hesitation. If my story can help other people defend themselves, I'm completely willing to share it. That afternoon, as I painted mountain landscape on my easel, I reflected on an incredible journey I'd been on for past 18 months. I'd started as silent victim and become empowered survivor who now helped others find their own strength. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Nora inviting me to dinner at a new restaurant downtown. Margaret, let's go celebrate life, she said with contagious enthusiasm. As I got ready to go out, I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a completely different woman from one I'd been a year and a half ago. My eyes shone with confidence I'd never had before. My posture was upright and proud, and my smile was genuine and free of emotional burdens. Margaret, I said to myself in the mirror, at 67 years old, you finally learned that your life belongs only to you and that you deserve to live it with dignity, joy, and peace. That night, having dinner with my new chosen family instead of my toxic biological family, we toasted to new beginnings, to wisdom that comes with age, and to courage to defend what's right regardless of consequences. And as I raised my glass of wine, I thought of all women who at that moment were suffering from mistreatment of their own families, believing they had no options, that they had to endure abuse for sake of family love. If my story could reach just one of those women and give her courage to defend herself, then everything I'd gone through would have been worth it. Because sometimes greatest inheritance we can receive isn't money or property, but courage to be true to ourselves and knowledge that it's never too late to write a new chapter in our lives. It's never too late to choose dignity over convenience, truth over false peace, and self-love over destructive sacrifice. And it's never, ever too late to be free. You know what, driver? That's my story. And every morning when I wake up in my beautiful apartment, surrounded by people who genuinely care about me, I remember that sometimes the biggest betrayals in life can become our greatest liberation. I learned that at 66 years old, it's never too late to stand up for yourself. Never too late to say enough. Never too late to choose yourself over people who don't deserve your love, even if they're your own blood. And the best part? I sleep peacefully every night knowing I did the right thing. Justice isn't always sweet, but it sure is necessary.